Welcome to Bits and Pieces Quilting. Today I want to show you how I finish my quilts by hand with the binding. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Michelle, and today I want to talk about binding, the very last step in the production of a quilt. Lots of people online show how to finish the binding by machine, and I've tried. Over and over and over again I've tried, and I just can't seem to get the hang of finishing the binding by machine in a way that suits me. So I finish all my quilts by hand binding. I apply the binding by machine, of course, but then I finish the back side with hand stitching. And today I want to show you how I do that hand stitching. I find it quick and easy. I can do the average sized quilt, a 60 inch by 80 inch quilt in about 2 hours or so. And I actually find it really relaxing to sit in front of the television or a movie and finish the binding on a quilt by hand. I like the clean and polished finish, and it's just an enjoyable process. So I thought I'd share with you today how I do it. So let's dive right in. I start by tying a knot into the thread, and I do this by wrapping the thread around my index finger so that the tail is overlapped, and then I roll the whole thing right off the end of my finger, grabbing hold of the end of the thread and pull to create a knot. And then I embed that knot into the fabric inside where the binding is going to be sewn down, and then I bring that out to where I want to start stitching. If I'm sewing from the start, this can be anywhere, but as you can see here, I'm overlapping my stitches just a little bit and tucking that thread into the binding so that it won't show. And then my binding process is to go straight up and down and across. So let me explain. I go up, take a stitch about 1/4 inch long in the fold of the binding, and then go straight down, take a stitch that's about 1/4 inch wide into the fabric of the quilt, go straight up, take a 1/4 inch stitch, and after about 5 or 7 stitches, I pull the thread all the way through. So let's go through that again. Go straight up and across 1/4 inch, and then straight down, so straight across, straight down, across 1/4 inch, straight up, in the fold of the binding, straight down, across 1/4 inch, straight up, into the fold of the binding, take a 1/4 inch stitch, straight down, back into the backing of the quilt, straight up, across 1/4 inch, and over again. Sometimes I forget to pull through. You can see here I've got probably 10 or 12 stitches by this point, and I probably should have pulled the thread through a few stitches ago. But you can see it makes a very straight and even ladder type stitch across the binding. And when you pull that thread tight, the stitches just completely disappear. In this instance, I'm using a navy blue thread with a navy blue binding, but my thread doesn't always match when I do this, and I find I don't need it to match because the threads are completely hidden when you use this process. So it's straight up, across 1/4 inch, straight down, and keep repeating that all the way along the binding edge of your quilt. It takes a little bit of practice to get used to. Sometimes my stitches aren't a perfect 1/4 inch, but with a little bit of persistence, it's not very complicated. You can see I don't use any kind of clips. I don't pin the binding in any way. I don't really do anything. I just roll over a little bit of a section, stitch along the way that you can see here, pull the thread through, readjust the quilt on my lap, and then just keep going. As we get to the corner, this gets a little bit more complicated. So in this section of the video, I'm just taking my stitches right up to the corner and to turn the corner. Keep doing the same process with the straight up and down ladder stitching, stitching across about 1/4 inch, pulling your thread through as you go. And the very last stitch before folding over the corner pieces, I try to end
the stitch so that my needle is coming out of the back of the fabric, out of the backing, right up where that corner of the binding turns the corner. And so you can see here, this is my last stitch as I pull that needle right through the corner as tight as I can possibly get it. And then I fold the fabric. I just set my needle aside out of the way, and I fold the fabric so that the piece across the top is nice and straight. I get a nice sharp diagonal where I've turned the corner, and then I fold over the next side of the quilt so that I get a nice mitered corner. And then I take 2 stitches here. I take a stitch into the fold of the binding, and this doesn't tack it down yet, so bring my needle up, stitch it down across the other side with a little 1/4 inch stitch, and then the next stitch is another stitch into the fold of the binding just to tack down that mitered corner. And so once that stitch is complete, then I slide my needle in through the corner and I have it pop out in the fold of the binding where I want to pick up my sewing along the edge of the quilt. And it's as simple as that. 2 stitches up that mitered fold, thread the needle down through the corner to bring it out where I want to keep going, and then I just turn the corner and continue stitching with the same approach. It's very meditative. I often do this sitting in a lounging chair in the living room watching television. You can see here I've got my cozy clothes on, a sweatshirt borrowed from my husband from a football game in the United States. It's a Marine Corps game, I believe, so shout out to Mark, the Quilting Marine. If you haven't checked out his channel yet, I highly recommend it. Mark does some great work and his message is really inspirational. And that's how I do the binding. These are a few examples of some other quilts where you can see the binding edge, clean, smooth, no thread showing, no stitches showing. Keep it really simple. It takes a little bit to go through the labels on my quilt, but this is how I finish my binding.
How do you finish your quilts? Do you finish them by machine? Have you been able to figure out how to get a machine binding finished with a really polished and clean edge? Leave a comment down below and let me know what tips and tricks I might be missing, or if you've got a video to recommend that might help me figure out how to do this by machine. I hope you enjoyed this video on how I hand finish my binding. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and check out my website at www.bitsandpiecesquilting.com.